everyone's aware, we are live, so all of your inappropriate things you were just about to say, please don't.
I'll say it anyways.
Looking at you, Raz. Hi! I know, right? Hi,
Yeah.
This is China Talk. I'm going to be your host, Frostgrin. All my panelists, we have our brand new overlay. Beneath me, I believe, is going to be Raz. To the side of me is Kelsey Moser, and then down in the corner is going to be Drexen. So we have Esports Heaven, Esportspedia, and no one knows. Yes? Drexen's smile, he's like, Kelsey's like,
What? It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. No.
It's a mystery.
I'm here one day.
Raz, it's great when you did that because your cam was like super pixelated at the time, so it actually looks like you were like disappearing into the shroud.
Magic hands. Okay. The first thing that I kind of wanted to start off with, and I already briefed the guys before we started the episode, we're going to try to be a little bit more newbie friendly. Doesn't mean that we're going to cut back on our analysis. We're still going to go into some teams today. I know that Snake's going to come up quite a bit, so guys prepare for that. But just kind of to set the context of LPL for people who may not be used to LPL or used to the structure of LPL, because it's a massive league. I know we keep saying that. I feel like I've said this in like so many different like answers and questions to people asking me about it. This is a massive league. There are 12 teams. Each team faces each other, what, twice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's too many games.
I know. There's 24 games a weekend. Like, in context, Spirit, Kelsey, Spirit in 2014 lost 14 games total in his career, like, of that season. And now, in the 3 weeks of LPL, he's already lost 10 games. So
the statistics I always like to point out are when I talk about dade or any of the Korean imports is last split they played was Champions Summer, and there are 6 games in the regular season for that league, or were, because they changed the format. And now they're going into each team has to play 44 games during the regular season before playoffs.
So LCS teams will play, what, like 18 games?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so an LCS team will play 18 games in their regular split. An LPL team will play 44 games. So it's funny because all of these chats keep blowing up and saying, oh, you know, where would you rank a team here, or why does it look like... I just wanted to kind of introduce this because I think it kind of sets the context of a lot of the things that we've been saying in regards specifically to Snake. Because everyone's saying, oh, Snake looks amazing. Would you guys consider them, like, putting them over the top 3? Are they breaking the top 3? You know, they 2-0'd EDG, they took a game off of LGD, they took a game off of OMG, and we're still sitting here like, Snake.
Well, I think a lot of that view does come from the outside perspective because, like, yeah, they look good, but I wouldn't put them top 3 because when you look at it in the sense that there are a lot of games, that also puts less value on each game in a way, just because there's more room offered for experimentation, and a lot of these teams always, like EDG being the pinnacle of this, but other teams as well have the habit of experimenting a lot in the regular season compared to the playoffs. So, like, the Snake you see now is probably not going to be the Snake you see in a longer best-of series in the playoffs. But like, if you're used to watching like LCS or something like that, it's a little bit harder to like understand that just tuning into LPL as a new viewer, but that's just typically how things work. When there's just so many games, it's I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to say because the thing with seeing Snake doing so well right now is that Snake is like playing their heart out, and we haven't really seen the like top class come out of the teams that are already at top of the standings.
But why are you able to say that? Like, how do you know for sure that this isn't EDG playing their heart out in that 2-0 that Snake took off of them?
I think it just comes down to the fact that it's hard to explain without going on a huge tangent, but basically
go on a tangent, Drexen. Your soapbox. Set it down.
Go on that.
Let's go. Let's do this.
I'm ready.
Well, I just want to consolidate a little bit
Buckle up,
because
bitches.
I don't want to talk about the last 2.5 years of watching LPL. It's just a trend that's been set for the most part. And the thing is that before there was less games and there was less teams. So now you do that with how the Chinese already took the regular season, and then you multiply that and you bring in more, and that's typically what's going to happen. And now with some of these new squads, it's kind of like, oh, well, LPL is our top peak of performance, so we're going to give it our all here. Because when you're a competitor, like the next top tier performance is where you perform the best. Like, so yeah, if Snake just hit playoffs, they'll perform really well. Or if EDG or OMG are already used to hitting playoffs, the lower tier below that will be something that they're not necessarily going to like pour their hearts out for wins, because they'd rather get the experience drawn out of it. So that's my take on it. Yeah, basically that's just what I've noticed watching the game in China for multiple years, and now it's just that, but exponentially more.
There's actually an argument a lot of teams are pushing for them to only face each other once in the regular season, because I think they feel that if they face each other too many times, they have to hide strategies a little bit. I think it's less relevant because there is more time between when two teams face off, but
Yeah.
it's still something that people talk about. It's like how I think that the Chinese scrum culture and the Chinese league scene in general is very obsessed with hiding strategies and hiding their picks and hiding what they want to do for the big games. So,
Raz, do you have anything to add?
And just to add on to that is, it does make a lot of sense when it comes to, I would say, of course, there's less value to the games, but and at the same time, there's less preparation for the games, so that'll help. It'll hinder the teams that are at the top. It does depend. Like, for instance, Snake has a style that really you need to, I would say, prepare for. You need to kind of set aside, or at least know what you're going into first. And so that preparation obviously gets cut down by how many games that are being played, or how little that the games are valued, I guess.
No,
So that's one thing I can go into.
Yeah, actually, and to bounce off that, it's not like we're saying that Snake is a bad team or anything. Like, they've obviously proved their merit, but the thing is like, if every single week is like a theoretical super week, you have the problem where, like, you do have a little bit more time to prepare just because of how the things are played out in LPL for specific teams. But I think the teams that have a more general approach that is more one-dimensional benefits more from the regular season, as opposed to the teams that rely on a more strategical advantage in those best of series and stuff like that, when they're just playing at like a general pace without much preparation specifically for one team. Then yeah, that also exposes like more strategical teams a bit in that format specifically.
I'm really glad that you guys brought on like the tail end of that preparation aspect of the fact that each weekend for LPL is pretty much like a super week, because we talk about Snake, but I also want to talk about King kind of in the same tandem, in the same context. So I feel like they juxtapose each other really well. They're both doing well. Obviously, Snake is doing better in as far as like a standings face value. But when we weighted the teams, we actually always weighted King above Snake. I think if we went back and did it, we would rate them a little bit higher now because Snake kind of has proven themselves. But I just kind of want to get your guys' understanding and kind of reset back to that and get the updated opinion. Because when we first took King and Snake, and again, to add context for some newbie people who may not really be familiar with China, King and Snake are both of the two LSPL teams coming into LPL. So they were all auto-relegated into the league, or I guess I should say auto-promoted.
Auto-promoted, yeah.
Yeah, the auto-relegated teams were Young Glory and World Lead Academy, who then had to try to requalify. Of course, Young Glory failed. World Lead Academy did requalify. It became Masters 3 and switched up its own roster. But King was the top team and Snake was the bottom team. And we said originally that King was going to do really well because we had this evidence in the off-season of all of these finalist third-party tournaments, because League of Legends never stops in China. They never stop. And King would consistently place in the finals. And when they did, even if you, like most recent was probably G League, they played a really good set against EDG. It looked really convincing, and so we were saying, this is going to be a great team in the LPL. They're maybe not a top-tier team, but definitely kind of in the top half of that bracket. And now they've kind of faltered a little bit where Snake has stepped up. Do you think this aspect of preparation in the off-season versus preparation in, you know what I'm saying, like League? Like, do you think King faltered in that they're not able to prepare for the schedule that they have of back-to-back-to-back to games versus in the off-season when they were placing in the finals? Was it a case of the LPL teams, historically, they don't really prepare in the off-season, or they don't really, take it as seriously? Do you think it was like a combination of these two factors that kind of led to King's surplus?
I
Oh,
I
go
was,
ahead.
I was just gonna say I think that in terms of like some of the top teams that could hold true, but I think King's situation is a little bit different. King, if you watch King's games from the LPL and you watch King's games from the off season, they're completely different. King has a playstyle that like relies on getting a heavy snowball early, and they used to go super ham and just not give a shit and actually like fulfill that in the off season. But now it's like they're playing really scared, and if you're scared and you're too afraid to attempt things, you just kind of are at like an even ground. And King's not used to playing on like even grounds in the early stages. They're used to getting that snowball off the ground. So when they're not getting that snowball off the ground, then you can see that they have the same problems that most LSPL teams have in the mid to late game. So I'm not sure why they're playing so scared in the LPL, but that's the main problem with them more so than preparation, I think.
Right.
I do think. Sorry.
Yeah,
You go first, and I want to finish. I want to finish it off with my opinion, but I want to start with Kelsey first, I guess, because I want to.
So- From an infrastructural perspective, since I know a little bit about King's infrastructure, they have a pretty big coaching staff. They have 5 coaches. Some of them are Korean coaches, some of them are Chinese, but they actually have a fairly regimented practice schedule. They actually fine the players if they don't show up on time. If they don't shower every day, they also fine them. But and the players have this reputation actually in this community of, though they're young, they're extremely hardworking and extremely eager to improve and constantly like bettering themselves in their solo queue games, etc. So, given the infrastructure that's in place there and the amount of coaching stuff they have, I do think the preparation aspect is going to be part of it. I think that speaks of a team that has a lot of preparation and a lot of research in place, and maybe in the off season the coaches kind of feel like there's not enough I guess gain from focusing really hard on teams every week, and maybe even the coaches are thinking, okay, now that we're in LPL, we tone it back a little bit, play more conservatively, kind of see how we do if we don't like go all in every game. I'm not saying that King is better than what we're seeing, oh my god, but I think maybe that might be like a mentality aspect. The other thing might be, okay, we have all these big names now, we couldn't beat, like, they faced EDG so many times, they couldn't beat them in the offseason, so they could beat almost any other team. Like the OMG that went to Worlds, the Starhorn Royal Club that went to Worlds, King beat those teams in third-party tournaments, right? But then they could never beat Edward Gaming, except for one case. They did beat them once, but that was like one of 5 best of series that they played against Edward Gaming. And then the last one they played was in G League, and Edward Gaming didn't drop a game to them. And until that point, Edward Gaming had always dropped at least one game to King in best of series where they faced off. And this was the first time Edward Gaming showed their new roster with PawN and Deft. This is the first time we really saw Koro as like that terrifying carry force, right? So I don't know, maybe that kind of thing also got to their confidence a little bit, and going into the new season they thought, okay, these hybrid rosters, these big guys, maybe we can't get away with as much stuff, maybe we should tone it back. So I don't know, there could be a lot of factors.
They could be experimenting with a more conservative style. Again, Chinese teams obsessed with sandbagging themselves. Well, the thing is top 8 makes playoffs now. There's 12 teams, and so you're thinking, what's your competition? GAMT, Energy Pacemaker, Masters 3, World Elite. Easily the bottom 4 teams. As long as you beat one of them, you're guaranteed a spot into the playoffs. So a lot of the pressure, like Drexen said, a lot of the importance of these matches it's not as high profile.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true. They could just kind of turn it on later in the season, and it would pretty much, there would be no downside to it, I guess. Except for maybe a placing, having to face seeding is pretty damn important in that sense. But other than that, that's pretty much spot on. One issue that I have with King, of course, in the LSPL, have always been consistent. They've always, and of course, just to get the context out there, I wouldn't say there. Okay, no, I wouldn't go that route. I was about to say there are just as many LSPL games, and it was probably you can kind of place it as whatever.
Teams are
I'll
in
get
LSPL now.
that.
There was 16 teams when King and
There's still
Yeah,
16.
Yeah,
there's still
16
16. Yeah, there's just a
Except
bit
they
different.
completely changed the format. Yeah,
Yeah, the format's
it's
completely
old
different.
OGN format now. And if you
Yeah.
guys like that format
Mhm.
and you want to see, there are actually some old OGN players. We've got
Yeah.
Hart,
Rest in peace, Art.
Swift.
Mhm.
Hart and Swift are both in LSPL teams. You can check out LSPL during the week on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday mornings. So, and they play with the 4 groups and the tournament bracket, tournament style. So that's kind of a fun side thing that we don't talk about a lot on the show.
And I'll probably, once the, bracket stages start rounding out, I'll start putting out my opinion on each team. You'll start hearing more about that. And if you guys want to see the VODs on the games that have already been played, I'll post that on my Twitter just to get that out there. But yeah, with King, very difficult thing with King is to understand the backstory on them. Is because they've always been the team that could surpass the meta. They've always played, like, when a meta changed, they've been the first team to adapt to it. If it's the protection comp, they had really, really solid like, were the first team that would get through the patches. And of course, Wushin was the guy to carry. He would play Kog'Maw, he would play Twitch, he would play Lucian. Of course, who didn't play Lucian at that time? And when it started shifting to an assassin meta, well, you know what? It was time for JS at the time, now known as Assassin, to really step up. And then when you saw in the preseason was the Sky Show, like you saw him on Aurelia. Well, he's always been like undefeated on Aurelia. And then you saw him at the meta, it was Lissandra, and he had an amazing Lissandra. And then now the LPL starts, and there are 2 champions that he should adapt to. There's Rumble, and there's Gnar. Gnar's a new champion, so like everyone has a fresh start on him. And Rumble is a champion that has always been there, but actually Sky has never played, which is really, really weird to say. Like in the LSPL, I don't know about the, I don't have the stats on the off season, but in the LSPL, he simply never played that champion. And so we fast forward to this meta. Well, started the LSPL. Started the LPL. Has he played? Is he going to play these champions? Is he going to adapt? He hasn't. He hasn't adapted to that meta. And so you'll either see people picking that champion away from, like, first picking the champion because, like, King won't touch it, or they'll be forced to ban it, which means that other teams will have the opportunity of picking something up that's OP. And so that's really sad to see. And of course, Lonely has the same problem. MLXG, same person, different name. MLXG just doesn't play Jarvan, and he's played it only 3 times during the LSPL, and that was like kind of his champion with his worst success rate. So they've literally, the team that's been known as that can adapt throughout each meta is absolutely shit in this meta. It's really absurd to see a jungler that can't play Jarvan and it's like a top laner that won't play Gnar and Rumble. So that comes into Snake's success because apparently that's all Flandre is playing, and Flandre can adapt to any champion. Like he plays any champion he wants. And so Rumble is just apparently that champion. I don't know about Snake's supporting staff, but they're doing a solid job on that front.
I want to take a second. First of all, that was good insight. Good job, Ras.
Yeah.
I want to take a second because, again, trying to be newbie friendly, and I want to address LSPL because I actually think it's almost important too when we're talking about the success of King and Snake, because the phrase has been thrown around that Snake is the Cloud9 of China, and I don't really agree with that. But I want to address what the LSPL is. So the LSPL is League of Legends Secondary Pro League. It's not semi-professional, secondary pro. And I made this mistake in the past, and I am now going to clear the air, set it straight, that it is a professional league. It's not a challenger scene. There's no way that you can go into this and you can say that is a challenger scene or compare it across from North America. It is much closer in structure to LCS.
Yeah.
And I think now it's the only one that, and I think even last year it's the only one that's LAN. Not even Korea's NLB had LAN.
Yeah.
So the money and the support structure and the tournament structure, league structure of this league, LSPL, is incredibly high profile. And so they put in the dedication, the time, and the training for that. And it's incredibly beneficial for training new talent in China. Obviously, we have like this huge Korean migration coming in, like all of these all-star names, even in LSPL. Dade almost played in LSPL, things like that. But as far as bringing up new Chinese talent, this is one of the primary reasons why we're able to get players like Flandre, like Sky, who are the real deal. Like, these guys are going to be amazing players. And I just wanted to emphasize that. Some people have like a really hard thing with it, but China, biggest, I mean, obviously the population is massive. It has 20 League of Legends servers that cover it. The most populated is the Ionian server, and it has 2 professional leagues. It has the LPL and the LSPL. This is not a challenger scene. This is a secondary professional scene, and it is definitely part of the reason why Snake and King have the talent that they do. Because I do not think without this sort of infrastructure within their League of Legends esports community that King and Snake would be as dominant. And so it's nothing like some, I'm not going to call Cloud9 a random challenger team, but it took Cloud9 twice to get into the LCS. The story that no one says Cloud9 failed the first time. It took them twice to get into the LCS, and then they were this unstoppable dominant force where they like didn't drop a game. They had the perfect season. A, Snake hasn't had a perfect season, and B, they're not coming from just out of nowhere. People saw this coming alongside King.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't really see Snake coming until it happened.
Snake coming, like,
Yeah.
But we saw at least one of them coming, okay?
Yeah, we saw one of them.
And the other thing is just the thing about Snake, though, is I do think that they are not gonna be the top team in the league. I think it's pretty clear to see that at least Edward Gaming, OMG, and LGD, despite like having dropped games to them, are probably gonna be a tier above them come playoffs. So.
Yep, I agree.
And it does showcase the weaknesses of that team, because that team has a lot of strengths right now when it comes to warding, when it comes to initiating. That team's and of course Flandre has proven himself as a top laner. That's true, but their weaknesses that they've had in the LSPL has translated here, and that's Baka and Xerath. That's like, he's an amazing player, no doubt. He's actually pretty damn good. Only problem is that like, if you take him off of his comfort champion, he has problems. Like, he will immediately. He one-handedly beat Cool. Something that we hope
Cool still like beat him in lane by like 50 CS that game. I don't know what happened. Why?
Okay, no, this is perfect. Let's talk about, so I wanted to pull kind of what I thought were the really important games, because obviously 24 games, we can't talk about all of them. The one that I want to start us off with...
Not with that attitude.
We can try.
Not with that attitude.
Just kidding.
The game that I want to talk about is Snake versus OMG, and to set up context for the viewers before I throw it to our panelists, the reason why I chose to talk about Snake versus OMG, obviously for just the storyline and the narrative reasons, this set decided who was going to be in first and who was going to be in second initially, when the game came up in LPL. So these two teams, top of the standings. Obviously Snake is making this amazing run through where they're like, EDG, no problem, 2-0, LGD, we'll take a game. And then, of course, tale of the story is they also take a game off of OMG. But the other flip side of this game that I wanted to talk about is that second year where OMG took off the gloves in the second game and decided to just... I'm trying to think of like the correct word to phrase this. Just dumpstered Snake. Just put them in the ground. And like... Yeah. And I think it's the perfect moment that when people keep asking me, like, or trying to ride the hype train of Snake, and I really like Snake, but I point at that game, I'm like, this is what you don't understand. LGD and EDG, they have those gears as well. And they're just like, I'm waiting for playoffs to just flip that switch, and people will be like, oh, damn.
And Jesus, like, playoffs is actually the time in which, of course, you have the most time to study a team, to understand a team. Like, because, of course, you're like, yeah, the format changes, the time, like, in between, like, the scheduling. It's just, like, that's when they start to realize, wow, this team has a lot of problems in the picks and bans. Like, Snake may have a lot of good things going for them in the picks and bans when it comes to Flandre and Beast, because holy shit, Beast's champion pool is something I don't talk about a lot, but it's actually really, really deep.
I am loving these Nunu picks in LPL.
Yeah.
There's so much Nunu.
So
Oh my
much Nunu.
gosh.
I love it.
So much zone control. Wow.
Wow.
So much team fight. Yay. No, but someone talk me through. Actually, I'm going to throw it to Jackson. Jackson, take me
Baron.
through Baron control. Take me through Snake and OMG and kind of line them up on where they, where they're strong, where they're weak, and how they kind of fit together, and how that matchup, like that set, came to be.
All right, so Kelsey's probably going to hate me for this, but I think in terms of OMG's strength, they're kind of like the TSM of China. We're trying to be more casual friendly, right?
Know.
Okay. I'm just trying to find
actually already
something
said this. They are legit TSM right now, and it's annoying me. Anyway.
And the reason why I say that, or we have that agreement, is because that OMG, well, they used to kind of have a more, I want to say they used to be a little bit more diverse in the past in the way they played, but the way they've been playing has been very brute forcey.
Oh, they get Uzi Eye on a team, and suddenly
they're brute forcey. Yes. So what's interesting is we had this discussion before the LPL started on what is the dynamic of the team going to be like when Uzi joined, and it was either Uzi is going to learn to play back a bit and do a more supportive role of a team that's been historically always been about the solo laners and the jungle and stuff like that, the top half of the map, or it's going to be like brute forcey, or it's going to be protect Uzi or whatever. Well, it turns out they're just really brute forcey right now. And I feel like that's still a little bit unfamiliar with them. Snake,
Define
I feel like...
Hold on. Define what you mean by brute force. Like, how is OMG brute forcing their wins? What are the variables that make that up? Well,
it's usually strong lane picks, just being... how do you say this? Not really... what's the word for it? Not really avoiding team fights. The word's eluding me for some reason, but essentially they're not playing a super hyper strategical game where they have really clever warding and avoid fights and just go for towers and stuff like that. They just kind of they want to win lane, and they want to smash their way forward essentially. Snake is actually surprisingly coming from an LSPL team, a more strategically diverse team, and I feel like a lot of that is just the way surprisingly how Beast and Ella have affected the team. So it's made them a little bit more diverse, and I think that OMG I still liked OMG more the way they played before, even though they obviously have an 80 carry upgrade, than what they do now, because now you can see the unfamiliarity in their play. First game, they were doing pretty well for a little bit, doing okay, but then Loveling just, I don't know, I feel like Loveling's not used to this brute forcey style because he seemed really uncomfortable and he kind of threw in the first game, whereas in the second game I think that wasn't necessarily the case. And also the second game, I feel like
they had slightly more creative targeting in terms of what they wanted to do. They had a pretty set plan, I think, in the second game.
She can't help herself.
Yeah, no, I think they did have...
I'm just saying I'm just trying to say... I think that's what you mean by he seemed more comfortable with how they were playing in the second game.
And also, another reason why OMG did so much better in the second game is because I feel like this is where Crystal was kind of exposed, because he played Tristana and didn't do quite as well, because he didn't have that, support staff around him. He didn't... It's, I tweeted out earlier, it's a lot harder to be Crystal when you don't have, Nunu Janna all the time when you're playing Tristana. So, I mean... Mm-hmm. Kudos to his Draven game this week, but that was kind of a game that or Crystal's weakness a little bit too.
I love talking about Crystal, especially with Kelsey, because she always says the one way to counter Crystal is to get a ward. And that game, it was so true. That guy just wanders where he does not need to be and just dies.
You just find him and you're like...
And that works, though, if you have a certain comp for it. But when it was a team that was primarily, kill lanes, not necessarily kill lanes, but you had Syndra and Rumble, that's not really... And then Thresh, it's not really something that's going to, super shield you and make you, invulnerable and all that other good stuff for being sloppy like that.
The question now that I kind of want to put to Raz, when talking about Snake, because obviously you have the most history with Snake, because you really like the LSPL, it's where Snake came from. Snake is actually, in my observation, agree or disagree, is actually really good at wave management. I don't know if this comes from their background in the fact that Flandre, like obviously they're a carry top team, and that split pushing and that makes them more aware of minion map movement. But the reason why I bring this up is because historically LPL teams, this is something that they've been pretty awful at. Like it was rare to find a top laner in LPL last year that understood how to use teleport correctly, which we've seen a huge. Like, there's been a lot of really good teleports, a lot of really bad teleports, but a lot of really good teleports. And
from unsuspecting players.
Exactly. And, not Looper. Looper has been on the end of really bad teleports. And wave management. Snake, especially in Snake and King's game, and why I really love that game is because King's so good at early warding, and Snake's so good at kind of predicting where to be by wave management. It was like really cool to see those teams kind of like manipulate around each other. And I don't know, I find that fascinating that an LSPL team who we would think would be inferior in, or less matured in strategic diversity, like Drexen was saying, to actually have a really very Korean-esque type of playstyle around them.
And I feel like that's something that came based off of
Snake Deer.
That came based off of like Flandre. Flandre was like he would always play high damage, kind of like very fragile gold reliant champions like Yasuo, Fizz, and so teams would like naturally they go into the game and like, well, how are we going to defeat this team? Well, we need to 2v1 them all the time. So maybe that's something they found through experience because they would always have to face that especially near the end of the LSPL. Yeah, they would always have to deal with a lane swap, and so something like as a result, you'd see them playing really well in 2v1s. In fact, when teams initiate the 2v1 on them, they would just simply outplay them. Flandre would come out with the most CS. He would either be traveling with the jungler, or he would just simply deal with a 2v1 a lot better. And he would always freeze the lane on his side. Like he would, I think he's really, really, the best thing about him is actually his wave management, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's... Yeah, also his natural split pushing style means that he's like paying a lot of attention with how his wave is relative to the waves in the other lanes, because and then this is actually something he did with Copy a lot when Baka, excuse me, when the mid assassin meta was on, they would both run like these split push kind of assassin like champions, like we saw that off-season game with Zed and Hades Static Shiv LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Top, and they did the tri-lane, right, push, where they had to pay a lot of attention to make sure, okay, if I'm going to split push here, the wave in the other lane has to be fairly far extended also, because otherwise my team can't get anything off of me dragging their attention. So you don't get a lot of that in China until Snake comes in, until LGD starts bringing these types of strategies.
Players that don't just lose lane.
Yeah, so and then even Edward Gaming last night in their they had PawN split pushing because I think they recognize that PawN's strengths are not in team fighting. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety now, and I think that LGD tried to enforce that variety last split too, but they just couldn't do it when they had weak laners. And now they have a lot more control over the direction of their gameplay, which is good. But yeah, there's a lot of strategic diversity. I mean, even well, we'll probably talk about it in the future, but like even EDG, like yeah, EDG's been experimenting a lot. Like they've been playing like just brute force comps. They played split push. They even played a poke comp this week. So I was really happy with all the diversity that's been going on. Not just typical Chinese aggression.
There's a lot of that though.
There's a lot of that still. Still a good full serving of that shit.
Did we talk about the slight tweak that OMG made to win the second game? Like the tiny tweaks that they make? Because they're just like really tiny tweaks.
The first thing that I want to talk about though, and just the first look at OMG, how they devastate CS. Pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
OMG wins CS, not even just a little bit. I think Uzi is consistently over his lane partner by like 50 or 40 CS at the really early stages of the game. This isn't like 20 minutes. This is at like 12 minutes. Like something ridiculous. And
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think Cool will have like 30 plus CS over their lane opponents. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, when they were against Masters, Going was like crushing Looper and Cool was crushing Dade. It was pretty impressive, actually.
They did I went back and I think there's one game because they had a really, really bad lane swap execution. This is the other thing is OMG is lane swapping like almost every game. And they had a really bad execution that set them pretty far behind, but that is the only game of the 12 games they've played so far where every single lane hasn't been ahead of their lane opponent by like 20 CS at least. So it shouldn't happen, right? We talk about all the talent influx going into LPL and like all these really big upgrades and all these huge name players. There should not be a team that just every single game, every single lane is 20 plus CS above.
And just to kind of give context for this, 13 CS is the gold worth of a kill. So if you have a 20 CS advantage in every single lane, and that's obviously being generous because Uzi usually breaks that more because he's an 80 carry, as someone there to kind of help him out, or he gets a solo lane to himself, that's effectively having like a between 6 to 7 kill advantage across the map that's like not registered on the scoreboard.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and sad thing is when, like, there was one time in which Cool was, for whatever reason, playing, I think that was Cool, actually. Yeah, it was Cool. He was playing Cassiopeia, and so, like, he got killed, and you're like, okay, well, this lane's going behind, and you realize, no, he built the tier, and he is actually, like, 10 or 20 CS ahead. You're like, what the hell?
And Hatong was playing his best champion, which, granted, isn't, like, a lane-dominant champion, but...
Talk about the narrative. Okay, how many of you ever thought you would, like, things I never would have said a year ago? Dade getting the shit kicked out of him by random no-name Chinese, like, low you know what I'm saying? Like, Dade played against Cool. Dade and Cool have only faced off 2 times before this, I believe, in the group stage. Samsung Blue, OMG, Fnatic, and LMQ, I believe, were all in the same knockout stage. But, you know, like, this was Dade and Cool. This was Looper and Going. Those 2 names, that narrative, not even a year ago, a couple of months ago, was like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. Buckle up, boys. And then we see Masters 3 come out against OMG, and we're just like... I know you guys can't see my facial expression, but it's just...
I think... Oh, that first game Going was just disgusting. He was like 7-0 and 14 on Rumble, and he just had like 40 CS above Looper, and...
It was so bad. Like, OMG vs. M3 was an insane stomp in every single lane. It was...
And I'm talking about this like I'm wounded and physically in pain, right? And I shouldn't be like this because OMG historically has been my favorite team, but it really bothers me because this isn't how they used to play, this isn't how they used to win, and I feel like unless they're facing a team, and I'm kind of relying on LGD and Edward Gaming for this, that can kind of contest them in these lanes, so they don't get away with that, and they make them adapt and change this, they're just not going to be very good in the long run. So, yeah.
Yep. It is concerning. I mean, you just, like, it's one thing if you just, like, lose those lanes, but that's just, like, the lightest way of putting it, really.
Even in the second gear, though, are you still afraid for OMG with the power that they showed in that second Snake game? Because that second Snake game, that was, like, OMG stepped up. And yeah, they're not the same team that they were, but they looked really scary.
And they've had a couple things, but go ahead, Rez.
Okay. I was about to say that OMG actually feels like a team that I will look into being the best team I wouldn't say very soon, but probably like end of spring, if not beginning of summer, just simply because I feel like right now, I don't know if they're trying. They're trying maybe very hard to CS. That's probably the only thing they're trying to do. But I feel like trades
they're trying that.
But it's like
doing it.
I feel like they're trying. It comes like
just fall into their lap.
It's weird. It's like
trading comes so naturally. Yeah, trading comes so naturally for them. And it's like, okay, they take a dragon. Well, guess what? Like for whatever reason, they already have like a tower advantage, and you would never. You just don't see it happening, but like for whatever reason, Uzi is on another lane, just kind of like already taking a tower, and it's just like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah,
and-
he's
yeah.
literally playing PvE for like the first 30 minutes of every game when he picks Sivir. He just like uses the Sivir ult to move to the next lane and shove out the wave. It's just-
And it's so weird
Yeah.
too, because historically, like, Uzi I would never lane swap. Like, if casting LPL last year, like, one of the big things is Uzi I is not going to lane swap. People will lane swap away from him, but he will take that 2v2 and he will jam it down your throat. Like, and now he picks Sivir, he goes top lane, he gets his solo farm, he has, like, perfect CS, and then he just comes down and just takes towers.
Mm. And maybe that's the way OMG is trying to play it, because at this point people are prioritizing Dragon, and they're just simply prioritizing farm and towers. And so what's going to happen at some point, like maybe the enemy team has like 2 dragons, well guess what, they have, like OMG has like a massive gold advantage. And so they'll just team fight them and destroy them. And it's like, it feels like a very simplistic way of playing the game, but it's working out. And it's so, I don't know, I want to see how that works as the season goes on, and how, like, if there are any patch changes that come through that it maybe affect that.
Do we want to talk about OMG anymore, or do we want to move on to EDG?
I have a couple more things, because I do want to address the tiny adaptations they made that allowed them to just like storm over Snake in the second game.
Yeah.
So the tiny adaptations were, first of all, according to the interview with Law, the support after the games, and we talk a lot about how Baka Xerath is like his one-trick pony champion, kind of like Xiang played Syndra. We've got like
Crystal plays
Baka.
Draven.
Power of evil, huh? EU guys.
What was that?
Dropping knowledge.
What just happened?
Oh my god, is that
I'm
an
just
EU
proud-
expert? Are you going to
just
tell me
proud
now
I
that
don't-
Leona is being played by Yellowstar?
We're actually all just being funneled
God.
slowly into EU, and LPL is going to cease to exist soon. Pyro is just the first victim.
We're all exactly. We're going over to LCS. Hubo's over there. Pyra's over there.
I already
So-
wrote an SK Gaming article. But so Law, the support at the end, said that they initially planned to ban the Xerath, but OMG had just woken up and going accidentally clicked Rek'Sai, and they were on blue side, to clarify, because Rek'Sai on purple side is a good ban. Rek'Sai on blue side, you expect purple side to ban it, or you first pick it. But so going accidentally clicked on Rek'Sai because he was tired, and
These games
so
take place in the afternoon. This is what I don't understand. This is the one part of the story that I'm having like a weird time
Yeah.
with. Is like, did they just wake up at like 3 o'clock, like partying
It's
all
1
night, and
PM.
then come to LPL and just be like, man, we gotta face Snake, guys. They're like hung over at
starts
the
at
keyboard.
1 p.m. It starts at 1 p.m. So you kind of think like pro players in the West wake up at like noon, you know. But so he apparently was really tired. He accidentally clicked Rek'Sai, and they had planned to ban Xerath, Azir, and I forget what the third ban it was, but they decided that since they accidentally gave up a ban, that they weren't going to ban Xerath. So they didn't ban Xerath the first game. Okay, first adaptation, they banned Xerath in the second game. The other adaptation they make is they ward. Wow. This is a foreign concept, guys.
It's hard
Damn.
because they don't have any Koreans on their team.
Crazy. I know, and they're not paying like the ridiculous money amounts as Raz would say for the words.
I loved that tweet. That was the best.
They warded, and then they realized that almost in ways Crystal is his own worst enemy. He'll wander into these weird places where he shouldn't be by himself. He'll commit over aggressively to someone else. Yeah, except he's not like as mechanically skilled as UZI, so he can't like get out of these situations as much as UZI can. And he'll overcommit, and so they just targeted him over and over and over with this. Like this, okay, we don't have to worry about Baka anymore. We banned Xerath, that's one carry out of the way. Now we're just going to target Crystal, like over and over again, as much as possible. We're going to do the 4-man tower dive that we used to do all the time. And then that, he ended up like 0-8, or 2-8 I think was his ending score.
Yeah.
That guy just got like really, really targeted.
That was pretty
And then,
disgusting.
yeah. So, and then at the end of the game, like Snake never got a dragon. OMG kept good dragon control. OMG was like 11-2 in towers. They had a 20,000 gold lead over them overall. They had 20 more kills. It was just these two tiny things that they did made it so that Snake was just destroyed.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I have to think though, and this is my theory. So after Snake 2-0'd EDG, and then they had like LGD and OMG in the future. Like Snake, to their credit, their schedule has been so front loaded, just with like the most devastating probably schedule you could possibly have. I have to think that OMG's like sleepy. They're not really awake. They're not really paying attention. Whatever. They lose the first game. I can just imagine the coach, the support structure coming over and be like, "Wake up! Come on, guys, get it together." They immediately turn it on. They put Snake into the ground. They just like bury that, and then LGD's like, "Yes, EDG got 2-0'd. OMG lost. This is our time to shine. We're gonna be the top team. We're gonna make sure that we make EDG and OMG look bad. We're gonna 2-0 Snake," and then they won one. And the best part was it was with Flame, and I was like so disappointed because the Flame Flandre matchup, like that's like Flame and mini Flame, and poor Flame, he wasn't put on as Fion likes to call him Rumble. He was put on Lissandra. And I just remember watching, like knowing when this game was over, was Flame went in on from the mid lane and towards the Baron pit, that side brush off the left side of the mid lane. Flame went in there with Lissandra for the initiation, and again, Wayless is playing Lulu. They have a Rengar. I think it was Rengar, Lulu, Lissandra. I'm trying to remember who the AD carry was, but it was like it didn't even matter. Who was Imp playing? It wasn't his Callista game. That was the first game that they won.
It was Sivir. This is the problem with their composition.
Oh yeah,
is
they
they
had
had like
damage.
0 damage. They had
Flame
They
comes
had
in, he chains the
Lissandra.
CC perfectly, and he just like, he dies and the rest of LGG just dies. I was like, wow. Like, he got like a 4-man Lissandra ult into like a perfect Zanya's Hourglass into a perfect like Lissandra chain invulnerability, and LGD was like in spectator mode just watching Flame burst into flames.
And then the slow motion, like, Wayless comes in, starts auto-attacking on Lulu. Help, Pix!
I got this, guys!
This is gonna go well!
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Ulting to run away.
I don't really understand why Wayless picked Lulu. That was very confusing. Is that even a champion he's played in LPL and prior splits?
No,
I don't even
I
know.
don't think so.
No.
He's
Yeah,
playing, he's playing
it just-
Lissandra, Ahri,
It seems so
Varus.
stylistically off for him. It was a weird pick in general, but also, yeah, I think like it just from like a spectator's point of view, it didn't look like Flame did too well that game. But I also think it kind of shows how the team's more used to playing with Acorn, because it feels like when Acorn goes in, the follow-up's a lot more smooth and clean than when Flame goes in. And I think like when Flame goes in or something, it just feels like the team isn't really on the same page. So I don't know. That game was just kind of like weird in my opinion. Like I still think LGD played well overall, but again, I feel like maybe it might have just been experimentation, especially with the Lulu pick. That's like completely left field for Wayless. I believe.
My
That's
Callista
right.
build.
Twen played Rengar.
Twen did play
That's
Rengar.
right.
Hey,
Okay.
Rengar
That's not
Lulu is
Lee
a
Sin.
thing.
No,
Also,
no,
like-
it is a thing, but I just feel like you can't do that with Wayless and
He
Twen.
plays. Oh, you can't put You can't take a damage. You cannot put
Yeah.
your damage on Twin and take it off
Yeah.
of Wayless. That is not
Yeah.
how that goes.
The LGD dynamic everybody knows is support the laners, not support the twin. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's weird. I don't know if they're trying to make Chuen be more carry centric. I don't think so, and I hope not, because he did look a little better this week. But I also think it's really hard to gauge when Chuen is improving, because even though he got off a lot of ganks and stuff like that this week, it's never like alone. He's always like roaming with someone else. Like they always like roam together, and so it's really hard to like credit him as seeing improvement. I feel.
And Wayless is 0-3 in LPL on Lulu, including
Okay.
last split.
Well,
So,
Yeah, that's.
There we
I felt-
go. Got that.
Lulu used to be OP, man. I don't know.
oh yeah, but it's just not. It's not his champion.
No.
Mhm.
Wayless strengths as a player, just to kind of quickly cover it, is wave manipulation. He's also really good at farming. He had this kind of this weird gimmick where he would pick bizarre champions for the mid lane. Like, he was one of the ones he started the Ezreal.
He played Lissandra.
Yeah,
also.
Ezreal, Lissandra, and what he would do on Lissandra is he would build the jungle item, the Spirit Stone,
Yeah.
before the new jungle items, and he would clear his wave and make sure that it would never be pushing against him, clear it, and then he would manage to not only get Wraith Camp, but the mini golem camp, before he went back to his lane and was able to catch the next wave. And he would do this against, like, an Orianna, who, of course, is amazing at farming, and he would have 100 CS on his lane opponent.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he would do it as Orianna too. The thing I always say about Wayless is that he doesn't really go off until he has these ridiculous leads, but he can always get these ridiculous leads because he's good at like pushing out the wave really efficiently. He's good at optimizing his time while the wave is pushed to either roam or to get more jungle farm. And he's just, and then once he has like this lead and he knows he can win, that's when he goes way too hero.
Yep.
He just like goes, he's diving your Nexus turrets for you. But yeah, so if you think about that's how he plays, Lulu is like this early game champion, and Wayless will definitely contest and make plays in the early game, but
He 1v1'd Azir.
yeah. He
He killed him on
1v1'd,
Lulu.
he solo killed with Lulu.
Yeah.
And then, but the way he operates, if he operates in this way, like Lulu is not going to be his champion.
And I think that if we bring back his old kind of style, it would be perfect in the sense, because I remember when he, like, the biggest problem that I had, or at least the debate that we always had with his old Lissandra pick, was that he was the sole carry of that team. Like, he had like the bottom lane, sure, but like he can't limit himself in that sense. But now he has like the solo lane from heaven. Like, that is, like, every lane is expected to carry in that sense. So it's like, okay, that's a perfect time to bring that out. And he brings out Lulu, which was centered around TBQ. And you're like, okay, no, that's not. Maybe they're just trying to try that out once so they can, from the next set of games, they're like, yeah, we're never trying that again. It's like, it's the proof that they can look back on. So
The historic context of LGD, it was 17, Chwen, Wayless, XQ, and PYL. Obviously, Imp we've talked about this, the immediate upgrade to XQ, although XQ had a ton of potential. PYL is the Mata of China.
Oh my god, he was so good this week too. It was ridiculous. The roaming Annie, man. Oh, the dream. And his thrush play was amazing too.
I think
think
lane swaps. Do you want to talk about that, Kelsey, with LGD?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Chwen this week also. I think that, like, from their games, it seemed almost to me like they were trying to give Chwen more resources.
Yeah, that's what I didn't
because,
like.
No, just generally, because I think, I don't know, maybe they felt like, because typically you see Wayless, like, farming all the camps
But
and
you
taking
don't need
all
that.
Chwen's farms.
That's what I don't
And
understand.
then-
If you have Acorn, Flame, Imp, PYL,
I know.
and Wayless, you do not need to be like, let's put our resources evenly onto Chwen.
And then, but the other thing is that, and Chwen historically, I think, and I was thinking about this a lot, like, why is he good at Lee Sin? I think he's not a good team fighter. If we put him next to Clear Love, which LGD and EDG have faced this year, so we can, he doesn't team fight well. He's like the Jarvan I'm helping kind of ultimates. Those things, but he can have effective pressure. So even when he can't get like Jarvan or Lee Sin, it's still better to put him on Elise than like Rengar or some other late game kind of jungler. And so they put him on Elise in one of the, oh gosh, who were they facing? I'm so lost right now.
Was it World Elite? No.
Who did?
Please
Yeah,
don't tell me we're
okay.
gonna highlight Chwen in a
WE.
World Elite game.
I think it was World
Well,
Elite. yeah.
okay, you have to think WE. Who's their strongest player?
And the
Spirit.
weakest team in the league right now, Chwen looked awesome. I mean, this is...
No, I'm not gonna say how he looked, but I'm saying like the way they played that is they put PYL like kind of
okay,
as
yeah.
his support in the early game after they did the lane swap. So they tried to make sure that Quan had that early game so that he could have some map pressure. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to say is that, okay, if we want Chwen to be effective, he has to be effective early. And so they're kind of giving him a little bit more farm. The Rengar pick I did not like. I think they're experimenting a little bit with how to use him more in that game, and it didn't work out. But the other stuff, I feel like this week for LGD has been a lot about how do we help Chwen be more effective.
Yeah, I agree. LGD, I mean, it is hard to gauge against World Elite, but that was my favorite game from them because, like, PYL roamed at level 1, and then they decided to get jungle control together, and then that put Chwen ahead. Again, this is, like, Chwen needing a lot of help, so it's kind of, like, discounting him a little bit. But I actually like when PYL roams around with Chwen just because they had Imp on Sivir that game, who got, like, a really early 6, and that was, like, insanely good for team fighting and shit, just because they got Sivir 6 so fast. And so, yeah, I think if LGD does want to, like, just have a, like, kind of trademark style, that should be it.
Well, there's also going to be a ton of success anytime they get PYL involved early in the map simply because he is the shot caller. And historically, like, getting him to roam, and he's really good at roaming. He's got a lot of strong roaming champions, known for his Alistar. He has a great Thresh. His Annie is fantastic. Like, the sooner PYL gets involved on the map for LGD, the more devastating that team becomes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Raz, do you have anything that you want to talk about LGD before we move on to EDG?
No, I think it's all pretty much been said. I feel like that team has they know what they need to do, and I think this set was a pretty good indication of, like, where they should head, and that TBQ should probably just stick to those, like, safer junglers like Lee Sin. Maybe even Elise. I think Elise is coming back, so that's a thing.
Bye.
I disagree with you there.
Bye, yeah. Really?
Yeah, actually, when
I'm not feeling Elise too much, but
when they first joined LPL,
Feeling the new.
and already came
so when
back.
when they first joined LPL, Chwen used to play like Vi and Lee Sin. That was it, and so they would ban those champions against him.
He moved on to Elise, though.
Yeah, he played some Elise games, but those used to be in like early spring 2014. Those were like the champions that he played, and then when you banned those, he would play Olaf, and it was really funny. Not in a good way, but yeah. So
It was in a good way, just not in an efficient way.
Walks into lane, throws axe, misses, walks away.
Not in an L kind of way.
There's a game. This is going off like a little. Going off track a little bit here, but I still remember a game, I think it was in spring, where he was playing Olaf, and he, like, walks top, throws his axe, takes 3 range creeps, yes, and just walks back down into the jungle. He's like, thanks for the tax, bitch. It's like, wow. It was the greatest. Oh, man.
Gotta farm Chwen. It's the secret success. They knew then, Drexen. They already knew what the secret to success was. They're like, Flame Acorn, no, that's not it. We need Chwen. He's the carry.
Chwen is akin to Gohan, you know. They understand his potential. He's gonna be something one day.
He's the Dada 7 of LGD.
Yeah, that's why we just keep beating up on him. We're just trying to get that anger out of him so he goes Super Saiyan 2.
Yeah.
I heard that Chwen was a shit talker too, so I'm so excited. I wish he spoke English so we could just have him on the show, because I would just be like, come on, bro.
Dude, he would shit talk us so hard.
Oh, I would love it.
Oh, my God.
Okay, EDG. Just who wants to take it first? The first thing I want to kind of cover and structure with you guys. So, again, give me context. Edward Gaming, historically since the creation, has been the most dominant team domestically in China. It's undisputed. They're amazing, or they were amazing. Went to Worlds, had a pretty shitty showing. Easiest way to say that. Since then, they've replaced 2 key components. They've replaced you with PawN. They've replaced Name with Deft, and then FCZF retired, and now they have Mouse, although they ran a brand new support, who I actually thought was pretty good. Mako? Was that his name?
Mako, yeah.
Mako.
I'm impressed with him so far. I have no idea where he comes from. I think he's a solo queue player because you can't really add people who are related to any team.
Contracted talent.
Yeah, contracted talent during the regular season. So, and he's not.
There's like 30 people per org.
Yeah, and I double checked to make sure he wasn't like Shine with a name change. But
Shin
yeah,
3.
yeah, Shine is
Dada 7.
Shine for clarification is the AD Gaming support in LSPL, and that's Edward Gaming's sister team is AD Gaming.
He's been playing pretty well too, as a new acquisition, which I was really yeah. Oh,
Mika's been doing really well.
This is this
Granted,
weird dance that you guys are doing right now.
I know, right?
Sorry.
No, that's all me.
Okay, EDG is Koro, Clearlove, PawN, I want to say Name, Deft.
Oh, I know, dude.
Oh, it's so sad.
Name, come back.
Okay. Drexen already talked about earlier in the show how EDG has shown very unique compositions. Now, historically, EDG was nicknamed by us as Baby Blue because they were very much alike to Samsung Blue in that it was don't lose lane, don't lose Baron. That was pretty much it. That was the 2 golden rules. And so what they would do is they would just kind of not play passive, but a very controlled game where they would kind of sit in their lanes for a elongated time and then suddenly, late game, they'd show up with these amazing team fight powers. And it didn't matter the gold deficit, they would just come back. And now, all of that's changed. Lead.
Yeah.
That's the softball pitch.
Yeah.
The depression set in. Drexen's like, Name,
No,
please.
I miss Name, but I do actually like EDG stylistically more this season, and I think that, yeah, I feel like they're a little bit more dynamic. I mean, they always used to have diversity in terms of picks, just their playstyle was ever really diverse, and now they do so many different things. Like, I'm really glad to see that Koro is like a carry top laner once in a while now. Like, I'm really glad to see him on that role where it's not just he's exponentially better than other top laners in team fights, but now he's also like he can also duel, and he's also really good in that department too.
Where do you think their diversity is hinged? Do you think that it was you that was holding them back, and that PawN is the element that caused them to change? Do you think it's Koro coming into his own and being this multi-threat stylistic top laner? Do you think it's Name leaving and Deft stepping forward?
I like you as a player, but I do think that dynamically it was better for EDG to bring PawN in. Just because PawN is like PawN is pretty much PawN is pretty much like opposite as to what you brought to the team. Like he's very good in his own right, just like, you know, soloing and all that other stuff, whereas you is more of a team fight guy. And what's interesting is I don't think necessarily Deft over Name brought a huge impact to the team, but I actually feel like the team plays more around Deft than they did around Name. I feel like Name was a lot more left to his own devices on EDG. So even though Deft's like kind of similar in playstyle to Name, they're like kind of funneling more into Deft than they ever did Name, I believe.
I want to build off of that because I really do. I agree with the idea behind it, and I think there's obviously going to be some backlash off of that. But like, stylistic.
You can't see my face, but I'm smiling.
Style doesn't equate to skill, and that's so true because I do think Yu is a better player. From what we've seen, he is a better player, but he does not have the same style as PawN. And so we saw Yu really start to go for that kind of maybe like edge towards that style, but like PawN has already lived in it. Like he plays those assassin, he plays those lane dominance. He is the early aggression to that team. And so, of course, EDG needs that aggression because, of course, while Koro's carrying the top lane, they have a very, I would say, passive bot lane. And so the bot lane is not expected to win. So who comes with that expectation to carry from the early game? It's PawN. And though he's failing, that's his style. And so maybe it's better to bring in Yu.
But what I want to say in regards to that, which kind of makes me feel for you, because I do agree with you that he's a better mid laner than PawN, is the fact that Yu actually does like playing the style that PawN is you know, executing right now. But his team put him in a situation where he was kind of like, you know, like he was pretty much forced to play Ziggs and all this other shit for like such a long time. So I feel like you could be melded into that kind of player, and I actually almost feel like it's a bit of a disservice to bring in PawN because it's like, well, he has more experience doing this, and it's like, well, you never really let me do this, you know. So that's a little bit of a toss up there.
When you make the statement that when you make the statement that Yu is a better player than PawN, why? What? Because we have to back up that statement here. Like, why is Yu a better player than PawN?
Okay,
I was just gonna say I feel like he did more for his team. All PawN needed to do is like exist and slightly win lane, you know? Like, I know that sounds like a disservice because obviously he had a really good Worlds performance and stuff like that, but like you was a lot more diverse. Like, he could play the Syndra and like, you know, Assassinate or whatever, and he could play just about anything the team wanted. Yes, he didn't roam much, and that was a problem because Clearlove wasn't really the most effective ganker, so you didn't have a lot of pressure on the map, so yes, that was an issue. But at the same time, you was able to be pretty much molded into any team comp. Like, when he was playing Ziggs, he was playing it in such a way that he would create a very good zone for Name. Like, he would utilize the abilities on that champion to make it easier for Name to position and for enemies to make it harder to get to him. So it's little stuff like that I feel like sets you apart from PawN. Because PawN feels a lot more one-dimensional, and you has a lot more diversity in what he can provide for a team.
Yeah. And before Kelsey kills us, so like I wanna bring up a very important opinion because like important something to like to remember because history matters.
Opinion, guys.
No, sorry.
I have a really long soapbox plan for this, so I'm just gonna let you go.
Okay, because God, I can't word things for the life of me.
Should I take like a break?
Because. Yeah, but history matters. History does matter. So we have to go back to what made PawN a valued mid laner. What made him like something like teams looked for. Looked for was that he was a very lane dominant player, but he didn't like. But Dade was superior than him in like just team fighting and.
Oh, Dade.
Okay, that was like going back to the heyday in which Dade was like the man. But yeah. But PawN was like PawN understood lane matchups really well, and he would play the lane and he would dominate every time. That was his thing. Like, oh my God, PawN like solo killed Faker. I mean, that's a thing now that happens from time to time. But back then, that was like a massive like problem. And now I do agree with you that if you gave you the chance, he would probably perform the same style that PawN has, maybe even better. But that was a risk that maybe they didn't take. And you can say the same thing for Name. If you gave Name the chance that he would perform team fights better than Deft. But they didn't give him a chance. And so like that's my issue with the EDG. And I think EDG would have probably flourished in their old roster. But I think they're doing completely fine now, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I believe they gave Name a chance, but Name didn't want to share.
I thought it was Name's choice to leave.
Yeah, I think Name wanted the exclusivity of that team. But yeah, in regards to you, that is pretty much how I feel. Yeah.
Okay.
Name was not going to be the flame.
Here comes the Kelsey. Here comes the Kelsey train. It's about to stop. it's about to make a pit stop.
I'm actually going to not be that mean to PawN. I want to say that the PawN that we saw at Worlds, the one that won lane and who actually like did really well, had some of the solo kills, and he was known actually a little bit as the Faker Slayer, quote unquote, by Reddit because he got solo kills on Faker and lane, but otherwise he wasn't like the showy guy. He was just solid. He was actually very you-like in lane. For the most part in Korea, he was just like win by a little bit, do what his team needs him to do, actually play some utility-style champions. He actually had a lot of parallels to you in that regard. But at Worlds was when he played like some of the assassins. His favorite champion is Fizz, right? Just like Yu's favorite champion is Zed. He had those really good, crazy games where he could 1v1 people. Yu didn't exactly do that as well, even though he was kind of given the chance. I think EDG was just stylistically very confused about how to play with that, unlike Samsung White. And they obviously have made adjustments since then because you see PawN playing these assassins like the Kassadin, the Fizz, things like that. And it's just really they were similar, and there was no way to really outside Worlds performance, which I think you had a really good Worlds. He actually won more of his lane matchups than PawN. He looked pretty good on Zed even without team backup. He had amazing Syndra games.
PawN got to play matchups.
But PawN, yeah. But the other thing is that PawN also looked really good at Worlds. Like, they both had pretty standout performances at Worlds. It's just that, obviously, Samsung White as a team did better than Edward Gaming. And I think, obviously, that has a lot of weight in China. Or else you wouldn't see all these imports post-Worlds, right? If they could just win Worlds and have a better team Worlds performance, they wouldn't be importing these Koreans. And so that's a huge factor. But overall, on paper, they're not that different. The one thing I will say is that you carried Edward Gaming. Like, this cannot be understated enough. You carried Edward Gaming during spring of 2014. He was the reason they won so many games. Like, his Gragas, his Ziggs, the teamfight ultimates were always... People go crazy when, like, you land a 4-man Shockwave or a 5-man Shockwave in LCS. You could do that, like, every single game at the right time from, like, 10k gold down so that his team would win the teamfight. Like, he just did that. That was just a thing he did. So he was really good at teamfighting. Like, that's how he played. And I think Edward Gaming... PawN they've been trying to play that teamfight style until last night, when they had PawN split pushing on Azir, on Kassadin. And I think it's because they recognize that PawN is not like the teamfight guy. And so they're playing around his strengths and weaknesses. And Edward Gaming traditionally has been very good at identifying, and just not just Edward Gaming, but Team WE, which Aaron was also on and had Clear Love and FCZF. They're very good at identifying the strengths and weaknesses of the players and finding how to play around them and how to play with those players. And they took Yu's team fighting skills and they made you that. They made you into that. And I think that's right now and then they took Name's versatility and the fact that he can be self-sufficient and they made him into that. And he kind of had really good synergy and peel with Koro, so that worked. But now they know what Deft needs, because the reason why I think a big reason why they lost to Snake is because they weren't giving Deft what he needs in those games. Like, Deft needs love.
He's got clear love.
He needs clear love.
Clear love.
The clarity from the no. Okay. And we've seen Clear Love in his lane a lot more since then. We've seen Koro almost giving up some of his lane dominance to make the TPs to help Deft out more. And since then, they've been really, really dominant in that. And then now they're figuring out what to do with PawN. And I think last night was about what do we do with PawN? Okay, he can split push. He can be a split push mid laner. And they got Barons and inhibitors at the same time off Starhorn Royal Club using that strategy. That shouldn't happen, right? So, I mean, it's about building around the player, and I think that they're able to do it with PawN or you, so I like you better if EDG would continue to play this teamfight style, but I think they'll adapt to playing with PawN.
I want to ask you guys kind of a really, kind of like I think a very loaded question. Obviously, because we watch mostly China, we've had now 2 splits, effectively, of kind of this Korean migration. Of course, it started first with Zero and Insec. Insec was easily the most high-profile Korean that came over. Now we have Dade, Luber, Dandy, Mata, PawN, Deft. Big names like that, like world champion, OGN title winners. Do you guys think that there is a difference in that caliber of player from the caliber of players in the Chinese scene? Because being Korean and being on the best teams, because undoubtedly Samsung White was the best team, they are then the best jungler. Obviously they're on the best team. Dandy's the best jungler in the world. Mata's the best support player in the world. But now we see them on other teams, and they're not flanked by the same talent. But is PYL any not as good as Mata? Is Dandy still the best jungler in the world? Is Cacao still the best? You know what I'm saying? Like, now that we have them kind of mixed up in these teams, because to me, and this is why I was really hard on Dade a few episodes again, like, it's very clear that Dade doesn't care. That he just... I don't know if Looper cares, though. Spirit is having an awful... Like, Spirit himself is trying really hard. And he sometimes makes amazing plays and just drags World Elite's body across the finish line in their one victory. Like, that was all Spirit. But at the same time, I'm like, is that a different caliber of player than the elite players of China that I'm used to seeing? Or was it simply, it's not one Korean that's elite, but it's when you get a group of Koreans together?
It's like a pack of coyotes.
We're making the statement that you is better than PawN. And before, a year ago, that statement would have been a death sentence on Reddit. I'm just telling all of you. You better prepare for that backlash.
I would have said it a year ago, too, just in terms of what you does for his team. Like, I think PawN fills a role.
But that's what I'm saying, like, team dynamic. Like, obviously, I had that big discussion about, like, team dynamic and how you execute within a team and everything like that. But are these, like, side by side?
Supporting staff is a very, very important thing for a team. Extremely important. And I think, yeah, you have the skill for each player, and you have the personalities for each player. Like for every team. So, like, personality is extremely important. And this is, I've said this before, and I think it's something to, like, speak on. Team dynamic and team play is the be-all, end-all of League of Legends. Like, this is not StarCraft, babies. Like, this is not a very like, it is mechanically intensive, but you don't find those players who are going to outplay you every game, and you'll be like, okay, well, like, for instance, OMG, but you can play around that. You can. And so, if you have a team that is very, like, they are attuned to each other, they know how to play around each other, and if you have the supporting staff that can really nurture these talents, like know how to, like, that understand the game. Like, that, for instance, that's how Snake is doing so well. It's not like they had these, people would say B tier Koreans, but they had skills. Like, they knew what they wanted to do, and, like, Snake's playstyle has changed dramatically from what they were before.
With the
and so,
of
like,
Sonella.
yeah, exactly. And so, like, now you're seeing Flandre playing these, like, very meta champions. You're seeing, like, Crystal doing the same. Like, it comes right down to team play.
Except for Draven.
Yeah, except for but yeah, like, the biggest issue that I've always seen is, like, for instance, we have to remember that before Samsung White and Blue, dade was in other teams and had the exact same problem. Insect was on other teams and had the similar problems. Insect, of course, is like this one of the shining points of Storm of now, but, like, that's another issue altogether. But, like, it comes down to team play, and you have to understand that. Like, you look at Samsung now as an organization. Sure, they lost a lot of their star players, but you can watch those teams, and they have amazing talent in certain respects. But, like, God, they've lost a lot in terms of supporting staff, and so now they're a bunch of shitters. And it's a weird thing to say, but, like, it is what it is. Like, team play and strategizing is so important to this game. So, of course, now you see, like, you add Koreans into, like, a batch of Chinese players, and you start to realize, oh wow, the individual play doesn't matter all too much. You put them in, like, you start comparing them directly, and PIL is as good, if not maybe even better than Mata, and that's, like, that you can have that.
Performing better than Mata. Obviously, yeah, exactly. He has far more tools than Mata has to work with.
Yeah. I mean, exactly, definitely. And so now you can actually make that direct comparison. Before, it was difficult to make that direct comparison, because, like, it's like, how do you see Looper? I mean, can you have a discussion if Looper's a great top laner, an amazing top laner, one of the best top laners, because he has a team, and the team supports him perfectly. And so now it's really hard to have that discussion about Spirit, because Spirit is still on a bunch of, like, it's a team of shitters. I'm sorry.
He's
like,
literally like, in ELO hell. That poor guy.
He's drowning in sea right now. He's like, help me! I need help.
He's got, like, STYZ, who's gold, and then everyone else is bronze.
I feel like this is Spirit every single game. He's like, okay, I'm gonna invade the enemy jungler because I know I can 1v1 him. And then he's about to invade. He's, like, on the threshold of entering enemy space, and then he looks to his top lane, he looks to his mid lane, he's like, I have Ninja and a Luca behind me. They've got Rookie and Pokemon. I'm not taking this bet. And then he immediately books it back out. He's like, never mind. It was so good. And he, like, popped Rengar ult too, and he popped Rengar ult, he was, like, running into enemy jungle to go find Cacao and, like, duke it out, and he was like, nah. Popped it right, turned that chip right back around.
You know, we talk about how the production quality is aces, but I want to see, like, cameras inside the player's mind. I want to see what they're thinking.
I just want Spirit's, like, facial expression.
It's like Rengar going into the jungle. It's like, I'm gonna fuck him up. I'm gonna take him on. And then you're like, wait a second, this is a bad idea. I don't have teammates. It's like I'm running back. I'm going
That's
back.
not Dade in the mid lane.
There's so many streams coming out of the venue now. It's crazy. They've got like at least one player cam on each team, right? And then they have the main stream, and then they have the Whites and Tabe on a couch stream, and
No, this is something I do want to talk about, though. People who aren't familiar with watching the LPL stream, they have individual player streams, and what that means is you can go to the players facing the match. So if it's EDG versus World Elite, and you want to watch exactly what Spirit is doing, you can click on Spirit's stream, and you can watch from his point of view him play that professional game. So you can see him click around the map and be like, ah, this is a car accident waiting to happen.
Oh,
and if you
God.
watch Yu's cam, he always like hits tab every 2 seconds. It's like tab, 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 tab.
Yeah.
Pretty weird.
It's the worst.
That was always my favorite.
Okay. What, Drexen, does anyone else have anything to say on that topic? I think Raz covered a lot of it. Like, obviously, like, team is important, but I feel like before you almost couldn't say that a Korean wasn't the best in their position in the world. It was almost like suicide to make a statement like that. And I feel like as, not even in just the Chinese scene, but in the North American scene, although I think the Chinese scene is more relevant because you have S-tier talent. I mean, I guess Piglet's over there, but, I mean, you have, like, Imp and Deft and...
Yeah, I think Rez covered most of the grounds, especially as far as, like, infrastructure and whatnot goes. I mean, again, a lot of professional play and performance is based on the human element, too. I mean, if you've been to the top of the top and you've seen the greatest things, and then you go to LPL and you're just getting a lot of money, but it's not as prestigious of an accomplishment, you're probably going to care less. So I mean, motivation's a big thing too. And yes, Dade is like the prime offender here. So I mean, if you're not as motivated, or if you feel like you've done it all and you're just doing it as like a job now, as opposed to like wanting to reach for a certain thing, then yeah, you're not going to be the same player as you were at your peak performance.
The other thing though is I think we talk about like the players and the Korean players adjusting. You have to think about the teams that are kind of doing pretty well from a support staff point of view are the ones that have had the support staff kind of in place. Because you have Edward Gaming. I think OMG has a couple new coaches, but they still have TT. Edward Gaming has Aaron still. You have the really cool Starhorn Royal Club Baikal Chris duo, which works out because like Baikal is the Korean coach with like that background, and then Chris like understands the LPL and the China. And the China.
The
great
China.
the China.
Here on China Talk.
We're gonna set up a
But-
channel called that. It's gonna be
The
ESPN
China.
9.
Like
ESPN 9, the
Vici
China.
Gaming, like home is suddenly having to deal with all these Chinese players, and Carey is one of these like really tiny baby Chinese players, right? Like he's probably like 15 or something.
He's so
You can just-
cute.
15
you can
for
just-
now.
He's like quote unquote 15.
That up.
Quote unquote 17. No. But you can tell he's like super young. And then, so he has to learn to deal with like this really young player who doesn't speak the language, who is going to be like one of the 3 strongest players on his team, right? So he has to deal with that. And then you have Pumendu and Mafa, who probably aren't used to working together on the IG staff, dealing with, okay, we're swapping out the solo laners some games, and there's a language barrier, and we're trying to get all these players to deal with the language barrier when we're swapping them out. It's an adjustment period for everyone, and you have to kind of remember that teams with new support staffs are going to have like an even longer adjustment period in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Good job on putting a stop to that.
You're welcome.
Because it would have gone longer.
The only other team that I would consider kind of talking about is Vici Gaming. Simply because their most recent series, they looked like a completely different team.
They're looking good now.
Yeah.
I was a hater,
yeah.
but I'm starting to believe.
They
I
looked
don't know.
awful against WE, but then they looked really good this morning.
I feel like Vici plays to the level of their opponents a lot, almost. I don't
Yeah,
know
I can see that.
because I feel like their games against like the higher rated teams were always a little bit more crisp.
Well, if you think about it
Until
this way,
last set, yeah.
if you have Dandy and Mata controlling your vision, like if they're putting out all this experienced, very veteran style vision against a team that literally just does random shit, like that that skill completely goes to waste. Like I can imagine Mata and Dandy like spending all this gold to like put this vision down and then not getting anything back for it, just being like, where the fuck is that enemy team? What are they doing? And then just like face checking into something for some reason they're standing there like, what's up guys? I know Dragon's not about to spawn for another 5 minutes, but I decided to be on this side of the river anyway.
And it's very hard for me to give Vici any credit in the last set against King because they got picks. There were so many times where King just like they pulled the dade where they just kind of counterpicked themselves, and you saw like Assassin was like, wait, I'm going up against a Lissandra mid. You know who's a good champion against Lissandra mid? Fizz. And you're like, oh, really? Okay, that's some great insight in there. Like,
how about that support staff?
Let's. Yeah, I don't know what King. It's so weird. They have, in theory, a really good support staff.
Can we just make that a verb though? Polling a dade. Just anytime someone's getting draft and just like picks a random champion. It's like
What
it's
about-
not even like a Zetai. It's just like I'm gonna pick the hardest possible matchup for me.
Jesus.
Hey, Axion.
You wanna bet I can do this?
Like, let's talk about that last game of GAMT versus M3. What was
I'd
that
rather
last
not.
pick?
I can't
What was that
imagine
last
Axion's.
pick?
I can't imagine Axion's life right now. Like, Roll probably hates him for replacing him at WE, and then like he has to deal with dade. That poor guy.
Oh my god.
I mean, if Dade would just like not be cocky, that team could be so much better. I don't know.
Why would they even hold last pick for Dade at that point? Like, what's the point of having the last pick if you're going to dedicate that last pick to countering yourself? Like, can we?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's the extra style points for the 13th time he does it and actually is able to beat his lane opponent.
Yeah.
The day
Oh.
will come when they like scrape into playoffs and then suddenly M3 becomes like the best team. Cause Dade just like he's like I've been
Candy on
practicing
that team.
bitches all 44 games, counterpicking myself and winning these matchups, and he'll just like,
It's like-
he'll throw off the weights and he'll come
Yeah,
back.
come playoff time. It's like basically Piccolo. He's like, all right, guys, I'm taking off my cape, got my hat off.
Basically Piccolo.
You're like, what is he doing? He's taking off his cape, and then you just see like the ground break underneath the cape, and you're like, what have you been doing all season?
Every time you look at Dade,
He's gonna
like,
absorb other
cleaning
mid
out his
laners. Like
nails.
what?
He's gonna absorb. That's what he's doing. He's actually absorbing their powers every time they kill him.
Just wait for it.
Oh man.
Oh, jeez, please.
Vici Gaming though, last night, I want to talk about Nunus. Okay, I know, I'm like really excited for this because there's been a lot of new news. Historically, Nunu has kind of been Clearlove's champion. He's been, Eve Nunu have kind of been like his little thing, as Nunu was really cool, especially how EDG used it in team fighting. And the reason why I really like Nunu, for the Chinese region specifically, is because of the zone control that it gives to these massive AD carries. Because obviously Nunu is just like a straight, like, I'm gonna hold your dick for you, just point it and fire. For your, for your AD carry.
Technical
Wow.
law terminology.
That, you can quote me. No.
That's awkward.
Only because you made it, Drexen.
Well, if I didn't like, okay, never mind. I'm just gonna stop.
I think the best Nunu player, because we've seen Beast on Nunu, we've seen Dandy on Nunu, Clearlove on Nunu, and there's one more I'm totally spacing.
Dandy? No, you said Dandy.
Dandy,
Yeah.
Beast, did I get them all? 3 Nunus?
I think so.
Okay. I actually think that the best Nunu player has been Beast.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I think Dandy is really, really close. And I want to talk about Nunu and how those picks were used. I was amazed with Beast Nunu. He had some, like, flashy shit on a champion that doesn't have any skill shots.
yeah, yeah. And the only reason why I think that Beast is better on Nunu because he kind of styles it in unison with like protecting the shit out of Crystal. He's like Dandy doesn't need. Oh, wait, he has Vasily.
No, Dandy has Vasily. Crystal.
Yeah, Dandy has Vasily, so like he
you
can
said
protect
Beast.
him now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I was like,
Yeah.
well, Beast. Well, Dandy doesn't have to protect his AD carry, and then I was like, I guess he doesn't because like Mata's already doing it. So I guess that's a thing.
Vasily's gonna jump in anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe
I
he's
mean,
just like
at that point, that was my favorite fight in King versus Vici Gaming, where I feel like Dandy almost set up that zone perfectly, and then like Vasily just jumps in anyway.
Yeah. So, dude,
And
you
King
used to be so good on
wins,
that
and it's
Tristana.
just like, oh god,
Off jump.
why?
I
Exactly.
hear that Mata, to my understanding, when Mata was on Samsung White, you could be standing backstage at OGN, and if they were against an Orianna, you would hear Mata screaming spread out against the Orianna ult. So, like, obviously he has a reputation of being, like, really loud and very controlling, like, that's Mata's personality. I really wish I could hear the comms for, like, Vici, especially when shit like that happens. Like, what does he say?
Hey, get the fuck
Yeah.
back here! I don't know.
Just starts cursing
Loud
in
unanimous
Korean.
nose, like fucking Darth Vader nose. Oh man.
And by the way,
Yep.
like this, as we were talking about Vasily, like, you know, jumping into his death, I feel like we talk so much about the top tier 80 carry pool that's in China right now. Let's talk about the low tier 80 carry pool because holy moly, we saw so many jumping into their
Candy.
deaths. Like we saw Candy, like there was one team fight I remember specifically that like GamT was going up against. Was it
Okay.
GamT versus World
You
Elite?
leave Tail alone.
But he did some.
Tail is a gem on that team.
Dude, yeah,
Tail
the guys
was
just
some
said
shit.
Tail is a god,
Didn't
man.
he get a pentakill?
Oh, he got a pentakill.
Yeah,
That's it.
fuck you guys.
Tail had
Tail
Tail had one bad game, but if you watch like the Vici Gaming versus GamT set, like he had so much game impact in those two games.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think Tail has always been really solid for GamT. He just like had, again, we talk about the brand new teams and how young they are. Like they literally have water bottles shaped like colored pencils.
Yeah.
They just robbed an elementary school bus. This is our team now.
Oh god.
But like,
Short
I
bus
just,
pulls up and they all just
I
like
think-
unload him.
I think for teams like King, GamT, and then Vici Gaming to an extent because they still have carry, just Snake, yeah, for sure Snake, because we've got Crystal and Fondra who are really young.
Yeah.
Even EP a little bit. I think to an extent you kind of have to say these are really talented players, but they're gonna make really dumb decisions.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot. Like with Crystal, we've seen it. We've seen Fondra make dumb decisions. We've seen Tail make stupid plays. Xiaohu, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we
I
have
can-
to kind of think about that. I think.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that Tail is a horrible player on his team. I'm not like likening him to like Crystal or something. No,
Oh.
Crystal's not even that bad. Okay, I'm not.
Dude.
Crystal's not even.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna backtrack on that. Kane, there we go.
Go
I'm dropping the
Candy
Kane.
or
Throwing
Kane
Kane off the
or-
bus. It's Kane off the bus. But I think Tail is a very inconsistent player. He's really good. Like you'll see points in which he has perfect positioning, getting pentakills. Like just he. But then there'll be times where he just plays horribly, and like that's honestly, I remember seeing people who are watching LPL, maybe not for the first time, but like seeing Tail for the first time this week, and you're like, yeah, that's not Tail all the time, or like that's just Tail some of the time. But like we saw some really bad jumps these games, where like there was one fight specifically where Candy, who's consistently bad, like we've
But
seen
the
Candy.
highlight moment for his team.
Yeah, but we'll see him like, oh, well, they're winning the fight, so Candy's jumping into the enemy team. Oh, he gets bursted down. All right, okay, so Tail jumping into the enemy team. Like, there'll be so many times where the AD carries have just been losing their teams the fight single-handedly because they'll be like, oh, this team fight's looking very good for him. Well, Tristana jumped into the like 5 people. He's dead.
You know what's
You're
going to
like,
happen?
alright.
The Tristana nerfs are going to make China better because they'll stop playing that champion and they'll like maybe move to something like Caitlyn or something like that, and it'll look so much worse to them. Like the decision making of rocket jumping forward versus Caliber netting forward. It's just so... There's no way that they can screw that up.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for someone to caliber net it. Just get demolished now. That's gonna be the best. Man, they're just like, oh, I'm helping, I want to be in there and assist. Like, what really should happen is they should just like, yeah, you just stay out of this fight. We'll clean it up here. We're good. We don't need you.
I don't do more damage the closer I am to my target.
They need an 80 carry to come out that's like Graves, but his passive is like a buckshot. Just got to be closer to do more damage. But no, actually, while we were talking about Vici, what I actually really like about this team is that it didn't end up actually being the Dandy and Mono show. Like, Carrie and Hitong are both doing really well in that team.
really
That
like
makes me happy to
Hitong.
see. Yep, me too.
Oh god, I love Hitan. Like before I was like,
That escalated so quickly. It was like, yeah, I really like him. Yeah, he's a good... Oh man, I fucking love him. I'm on the carry
I'm
train.
actually signing marriage papers right now.
I'm on the carry train. Let's go, carry. Woo.
Yeah, Carrie is very good.
dude, I felt like, okay, I was immediately going into the first week of the LPL, I was like, Carrie's a great top laner, but he could make some really bad decisions with his picks.
Well,
but he's making
also-
some very smart decisions with his picks, so it was nice.
He's
I'm happy.
facing off against Going, Flandre, Sky, like Flame, Acorn. It doesn't matter if he's an amazing top laner. He's facing off against possibly the best talent in the world.
And he's
Exactly.
done really well.
Yeah,
actually.
he's done really
Yeah.
well considering.
He didn't go full carry. He's not picking up Riven. I'm really, really happy about that because I felt like that could have gone really poorly, really quickly. So I do love the fact.
He
I
is
love
really
how
good
he's
at Riven, though.
transitioning. He is, and they
Yeah.
they played Riven's pretty intelligently. Like if they do end up picking Riven, they just put him mid. So that's fine. And Hitong is really coming forward as a pretty damn good mid laner. I forgot who they replaced actually. The names are always kind of bad with
They
me.
replaced soon.
Zune, yeah. And Zune was just like a Xerath player, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want two Pakas in this game. So, yeah.
The disrespect is so real right now. And people say I'm mean.
I'm sorry. I'm very harsh when it comes to LSPL people
I'm still
because
conservative on Hitong because he played kind of poorly in LSPL, so when he was on Vici Gaming P, so I'm just kind of giving him a little bit more time, I think. But Carey, I'm gonna be high on because he played really well.
yeah.
He's pretty much consistently played well in everything I've seen him in. So
Okay. Do we have any other statements to make? Because we're coming on to 2 hours and I haven't slept and I need to sleep.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think we covered most bases.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Anyone? Anything else? Do we have anything in chat that needs to be addressed? I don't have it in front of me.
all right, let's do the game recommendations real quick.
Okay.
Obviously, we talked about a lot of good games. I would say if you have to watch a game this week, no. I would watch LGD and Snake because I think the wave manipulation in those games are pretty good.
I would watch OMG and Snake.
I would watch King and Snake. Just for the story.
That wasn't this week.
Or was
Are we
last
talking
week?
about just?
Really?
Are we talking about?
Jeez.
Are we talking
Oh,
about just
bleeding through
entertainment?
No, just it can be entertainment. Oh, you're gonna say
You can
JMT
pick
and Masters
entertainment.
3.
No, I want to say OMG and M3 because I like seeing a going Crush Looper and cool Crush Dade. It's just satisfying. I don't
want
know.
to be vindictive.
There's a
That was my
satisfaction about that.
recommendation. No, but those games actually had like some really. If you love UZI and like when he goes off and has like these crazy plays and moves and like the quadra kills and the like flash jump, weird. I don't know, like how does he do that with that
he
champion?
rocket jumped and flashed, but he canceled the animation of the rocket jump, but got the distance on it. So it was an immediate.
Anyway.
So like the time, it was bizarre. I don't know how he did it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that's your series if you're like a UZI fan or a Go-Going fan or a cool fan, I guess.
Actually, yeah, I really did like the
Yeah,
LG
all three lanes
Snake.
won. But honestly, the least impressive was UZI's because their lane was like a winning lane. So I don't know.
Well, it was, but it still allowed him to do like the crazy stuff, like the 3v1 stuff that he
Yep.
does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Raz, game him. Oh, you said King and Snake, even though that was...
No, okay, I'll just go to LGD and Snake, because I'm looking at the entire thing, and it's like, yeah, that's the only one I actually really liked, really enjoyed. Pretty much.
Okay, shoutouts. Kelsey, start with you.
Sorry, I haven't been writing much. Hopefully good content will be out from me this week.
Yeah. Subtle.
I also have, I'm going to publish, on the YouTube channel, I subtitled an Aaron interview where he actually goes through the teams and breaks down their strengths and weaknesses, except he doesn't mention IG. I don't know, whatever.
Oh.
The BM, and I think it's really interesting. So, yeah, look for that also today.
Jackson?
Yeah, just standard shoutouts to Esports Heaven as well as the panelists. Good as always. Thanks to all the viewers for tuning in.
Raz?
Yeah, Esportspedia for everything they've done for me. That as well as I want to give kind of a miniature shout out to Cubo and Mashmiter, just because they've been people friends of mine, and they've actually been doing really well in the first couple weeks in the LCS. So that's really nice. Pow.
Yeah, go Hubo. Woo!
Yay! Coaching stuff.
Exactly. Hubo looks fly too up there. I recently released a video, it didn't get much traction, called the Paper Perfect Roster. I use an example of OMG in the video and talking about pretty much exactly what we talked about on the show. The synergy, between taking all-star talent and then the facets of synergy and team dynamic and how that's important. So I will give a shout out to that. Otherwise, thank you again to my panelists, and I think that's it. So everyone do your thing, start waving.
Bye.
Oh, I started
Give me that
waving, but I don't
young
have my
retweet.
cam.